Hello everybody, this is about my fourth or fifth attempt at this video. As I've been approaching 10,000 subscribers and preparing this Draw My Life that I'm going to do for this momentous occasion, I realised that a very large part of my life when I was younger was really taken up with dieting, food, weight issues. So I thought I'd make a completely separate video about that. I want to dedicate this video to a YouTuber that I've come across recently and met the other day, and that's Lauren. And she has got an amazing channel. She started it to document her weight loss, and she has done an amazing job. She has kept the weight off for over 4 years, and her channel recently has been growing rapidly because she's got such a great personality, but her whole channel is like so supportive and really positive, so I'm going to link all her details here. I think the whole weight, dieting, food thing all started for me in my teens, as it does for many people, just because, you know, I got to that stage where I was getting a bit curvy, and my mum had gone on a calorie count thing because she'd found it difficult to lose weight after my youngest brother. So things were beginning to come into my consciousness in relation to kind of watching your weight and that kind of thing. And at the time I had quite a few friends who did meal replacement things, or their mums or their aunties. And there was a thing around at the time called limits, and you would replace a meal with biscuits or a shake. Didn't appeal to me at all because I haven't really got a sweet tooth. And I think I did develop some like weird eating habits in that if my parents went out, I would think, great, I can do what I like, I'll have a big fry up. And then sometimes I would pop down to the newsagents that had a big kind of ice cream freezer thing, buy a tub of ice cream and eat a whole tub of ice cream. So it's no wonder I kind of rounded out slightly, but I was nowhere near overweight. But I guess I was turning to food for, I don't know, entertainment, comfort, whatever, and big bars of chocolate. Yeah, so I didn't really have a sense of what healthy eating was. But the first time I began to realise that there was a real issue to do with dieting and, you know, problems to do with eating disorders was when I met my friend Debbie, and she told me that she'd had an eating disorder, that she'd had anorexia, she'd gone on a diet and then it had gone a bit too far, and she still felt like she was overweight and had eating issues. She looked gorgeous to me, but she always wore long Laura Ashley dresses because she felt that her legs were fat. So around that time I definitely started to try and diet, and then I do think I started to binge eat every now and then just because I felt so deprived of food and really hungry because I'd been trying to crash diet too much. I seem to be surrounded by people who are quite obsessed by it as well, particularly boys. There was a couple of boys in our group, and one used to like go running like mad, and another guy used to talk about the only way to lose weight is to skip meals, and not really a kind of good way to be talking around teenage girls. And then I did put on a lot of weight. Well, it felt like a lot for me at the time, and Debbie encouraged me to come to Weight Watchers with her. I think I only went about 2 or 3 times, but it definitely seemed to help her. She seemed to be on an even keel, she seemed to be eating healthily, and the talks were really good and really gave you a good sense of what healthy eating was all about, and really got into my head the sense of you need to have breakfast, lunch and tea, and you can have snacks but they need to be healthy. And they focused quite a lot on nutrition, and I remember there was things like you need to have 2 ounces of protein at lunchtime and 4 ounces at tea time, and that just gave me a really good framework for healthy eating for the future. I had this older friend who was kind of like a mentor, and some of the things she said were really good and really helpful. And I remember when I was doing my O-levels, I felt a lot of pressure from teachers to do as many subjects as possible, and I remember her saying, look, the important thing is for you to do what is right for you. You don't have to serve these teachers, as it were. They're not your master, you're your own master. You do you. But she'd been through the whole kind of thing, you know, swinging from binge eating to crash dieting and that sort of thing, and she felt she'd resolved it by dieting. She'd also read this book that she recommended called Dieting Makes You Fat, And it was really about the whole thing to do with, if you crash diet, you lower your metabolism, and so you put on weight more easily. But the thing that kind of rung a bell with me was the whole kind of worrying about your weight, worrying about dieting, kind of makes you think about food all the time. So you actually end up eating more. So to me, the ideal mentally healthy thing would be to not have to think about it at all and just eat healthily automatically. That's what I longed for. Anyway, after O levels, I went to sixth form college, and I was really not happy there, and I really put on a lot of weight. And I found it really difficult. If I was doing babysitting jobs, they would leave lots of cakes out for you and everything, and I just seemed to eat the whole evening and not think about anything else, and then I wouldn't be able to sleep well that night, and I'd feel ill the next day. And then I had one or two friends that I was chatting to who would say, oh yeah, I just make myself throw up. And the whole bulimia thing hadn't really come to the fore. It was more like the anorexia thing. I never ever got into throwing up. I never did it once. I just couldn't imagine it would be nice. But definitely there were a lot of people that were talking about that, that you can resolve the binge eating thing by just throwing up. And they didn't seem to associate it with something wrong or a disorder at all. Anyway, I left sixth form after 2 terms because it was just all doing my head in. And I went to work in a restaurant, and surprisingly, that was really good for me. The fact that there was food around all the time just put me off food, and it was busy and it was fun, and I didn't think about it, and I just lost the weight. Not like rapidly, but just naturally. But then I left the restaurant, and there was various bits and pieces that I did before I went to university. I was studying to try and get into music college, and then I didn't get into music college, and then I went to do my A levels on a 1-year course. And around that time there was lots of other things going on. My dad was working abroad, I really missed him, and I was stuck at home. I was helping my mum out a bit with kind of the shopping, looking after my brothers. I was preparing meals, I was having to shop, I was just thinking about food all the time again, and everything just got out of hand, and it just all really did my head in. So after I'd done my A levels and I got into university, I decided, right, I am not going to think about this at all. I'd rather be overweight than do all these mental gymnastics all the time. And it worked. I did put on weight initially, but I didn't have to think about cooking and preparing meals because our meals were provided for us, our breakfast and our evening meal, and I just went to the cafeteria with all the other students at lunchtime and ate whatever they ate, like chips and egg and that sort of thing. And it just helped me to eat normally like other people do. And nobody at university seemed to think about it or talk about it at all, and everybody was very inclusive and accepting. Before I'd gone to university, the group of friends I went around with, I was saying there was a couple of guys that were kind of obsessive about it. They also used to make the cruelest jokes. There was one when we were all swimming, and this guy said to me, "You don't need to go on a diet, you need to go on 3." Which is like, especially when you're in the swimming pool, you just want it to swallow you up. Another time we were moving some furniture around at my parents' house, and of course there was all these violin cases under this settee that we were moving, and he said, "Oh look, 1 for each chin." They're funny jokes, but those kind of things can go deep when you're a teenager, so be careful guys, don't make jokes at the expense of your girlfriend's weight. Anyway, I really felt like the whole thing was getting unhooked when I was at university. I wasn't thinking about it, wasn't thinking about dieting, wasn't thinking about preparing food, and I just was able to observe how normal people eat. And there was one incident that particularly sticks in my mind. We were all walking back from university, and there was this really nice cake shop or a delicatessen or something on the way back from uni. They had these slabs of delicious cheesecake, and I said, "I'm just going to pop in here and get a piece of cheesecake." And this guy said, "What do you want to do that for? We're just going to go back and have our evening meal." And I thought, yeah, that's true. What would I want to do that for? And I was thinking, yeah, that's what a normal person who doesn't think about food, doesn't use food as a kind of crutch, does. They think, I would be too full for my evening meal. And yeah, gradually just kind of really normalised about it all. It was great. And I just gradually lost weight. I still had this kind of sense of what's nutritionally good and what's a healthy kind of pattern of eating because of the Weight Watchers thing. and that stuck with me, and I just gradually lost weight. I met Ben, and he didn't care about weight or my weight or eating or anything, and he was completely accepting, and that was really great for me. That was really healthy for me. So then I had Louis and Hilary, and what I found then was that you get to when the baby is 6 months old, and then suddenly the weight drops off you. You seem to hang on to a little bit. I think it's in case you get lost in the forest when you're feeding the baby. You've got reserves, and then as you begin to wean the baby, your weight just seems to drop off. And then it was the 80s and people were starting to get into aerobics, and my friends were saying, come to aerobics with us. Initially it was such a lot of physical work, looking after 2 small children and pushing a double buggy, that I was like, I'm not going to go to a fitness class as well. But as the kids became more independent, I went along and it was really fun. And then at some point I actually started teaching Keep Fit with my friend Roz, and then I found I could eat anything. We were doing really heavy workouts, like 3 or 4 times a week, and I could eat plates of chips and I just stayed really skinny, and I just didn't have to think about it at all. I think for a whole kind of 15 years I didn't really think about it. There was a point where Debbie realised she really did kind of have a bit more of an eating disorder, and actually went to get some help for it, and she was given this really good book, and I'm sure I've got it somewhere, but with our move to Brazil I think it's in a box somewhere, because I really wanted to recommend it to you, and I think it's called something like The Issue to Do with Food. But the thing about this book was it really talked about how different foods can be triggers, or different situations can be triggers, and although on the one hand I'm sort of saying, I didn't really have to think about it for 15 years, there was definitely things I did to avoid particular problems. Like there were certain types of packets of biscuits that I knew that if they were in the house I would just eat the whole packet, so I just wouldn't have those kind of things in the house, and I wouldn't buy those kind of things. Then I had Darcy and it was a different story. It was quite different having a baby at the age of 40 than it was in your early 20s, and I found it really difficult to lose the weight, and also I'd stopped teaching Keep Fit by then, so I wasn't doing as much fitness. So it came to a certain point where I thought, okay, I can't be so carefree about this anymore, and I do need to look after my health as I'm getting older. So what I did was I set up a spreadsheet, and I'd carried on eating in a really healthy way, breakfast, lunch and tea, and the odd healthy snack. My workouts were a bit more kind of spasmodic. So setting up a spreadsheet and setting out like a 12-week program was a really good way to do it. It was just really like watching your finances, and I didn't really feel like I'd changed anything that I was doing, and I lost the weight, not rapidly, it was like about £0.5 pound a week, and I got nice and trim for our silver wedding, and that felt good. I think I was aiming for a lower weight than, as I lost the weight, realised suited me. And then a little while later I went through the change, the menopause, and that has its own set of problems as well, because your muscle density actually reduces, so you don't have the strength to work out as vigorously as you did before, and your metabolism lowers because your muscle density isn't so great. So it was more easy to put on weight. I wasn't overeating, I definitely wasn't binge eating, that kind of thing had completely gone out of my head. And Louis introduced this app to me because he was trying to put on weight, and it's called MyFitnessPal, so I can really recommend that. It was like doing the spreadsheet thing, but you've got it on the go with you all the time, and all these foods are programmed in already, and they've got all the nutritional values as well. So that's really helpful for me as I'm getting older and needing to make sure that I have the right potassium levels and iron levels and that kind of thing. So before Hilary's wedding, I again purposefully tried to lose weight and get down to a certain weight. And I did, and I was very happy with that. But again, I didn't feel like I had altered anything mentally. It was more, again, like just keeping an eye on the pennies or the calories. So the whole time, the most important thing to me was to stay mentally healthy about it, not get obsessive, not be thinking about it all the time. And those 2 methods for me just worked. Then we went to Brazil. And then coming back from Brazil, as you know if you've been watching my videos, for some reason everything's been really stressful. And one of the things I've noticed about stress, and I noticed it when I was really watching what I was eating before Hilary's wedding, and one week, and I know because I documented it all, I didn't eat any differently than I did the week before, but it was a stressful week and I actually put on weight. And I looked it up and discovered that when you go into fight or flight mode, that's another time that your body hangs on to weight in case you need the fuel for doing your fight or flight. So that's an interesting thing as well. I think sometimes people think if they've been under stress, they must have been eating to compensate, when actually maybe they haven't. Maybe their body's just been hanging on to the weight. But again, I've been thinking, I'm getting older, I really need to look after myself, and I'm going on holiday in the summer, and it's a beach holiday, and as I said in my last video, I kind of want to be bikini ready. But I've been really hesitant because I didn't want to get into this kind of mental state about it, and I didn't want my weight and how I look to be too important either. But at the end of the day, I really do want to get on top of keeping myself in shape and keeping myself healthy. So I have been using the MyFitnessPal thing. I'm making sure I work out more, and Lauren has been a really good inspiration for that as well. So I think you should go and follow her, and she's doing this super summer slim down thing at the moment for June. But most of all, I think the message that I want to bring across in this video, and the thing that's been most important to me all along, is to stay mentally healthy about everything. And within reason, I think it's better to stay mentally healthy than be skinny and gorgeous. Because other people don't really care, and they love you just as you are. So I hope you found this video helpful. I'd love to hear your comments below, and I'm sure this will be an ongoing conversation. So I think that's all for now. See you soon. See you next time.